So I wanted, before we get started, to let everyone know that I have a new podcast out, and it's called Meditations. If you like the Meditations segment of this current podcast, you'll like the Meditations podcast. It's nothing but 20 minutes of meditative sounds. And now, on with the podcast.
Americans love scenery. We want to see it all, from one coast to the next, Mount Rushmore down to the Everglades. So hop into a Chevy Malibu and take the scenic route. It's the car you knew America could build. There's a place where people count on friendships they can trace back generations, where they can count on the same stool at the coffee shop waiting for them every morning. This place is called Glen Ellen, and you can find it in every bottle of Glen Ellen wine. This is craft brewed Herman Joseph's, the smoothest, easiest drinking specialty beer in the entire solar system. And I believe you'll find drinkable in the dictionary right after don't order a beer you can't drink. Zoingo! Boingo! The freestyle pogo with more boing, more bounce. Bounce further, bounce higher with Zoingo Boingo. To see what makes Arrowhead Mountain Spring water different from those other waters, you have to go back to the source. And with Arrowhead, that means going back a little farther and longer than most. Between security challenged and security strengthened, there's one important word: how. And it is the how that makes all the difference to our nation and our world. Lockheed Martin. We never forget who we're working for. What makes Kraft singles so good? 2 out of every 3 kids don't get the recommended amount of calcium. But with Kraft singles, they get a good source of calcium and the taste they love. Kraft singles. Magic every single time. Throw boring overboard with a new real meal from Long John Silver's. A meal worthy of a plate, just $4.99. Only at Long John Silver's. We may not all be geniuses, but we can all do something smart. Introducing the Hyundai 199 Sonata Lease. It's a smart deal on a really smart car.
Disguising himself and leaving Moscow and going to a little tiny village down about 100 miles away. Introduced himself to the mayor of the village and said, "Tell me," he said, "do your people here have television sets? How many?" "Oh," he said, "every hut in the village has a television set." "Well, they do, yes." And he said, "and most of them have VCRs." Well, he said, "That's remarkable." He said, "Well, it's wonderful." He said, "What about refrigerators? Do they have refrigerators?" He said, "Almost every house has a refrigerator, some have 2. And then Gorbachev says, "Wait a minute, you're pulling my leg. You know who I am." And the mayor says, "Of course I know who you are. You're a CIA agent." Who else would come to a decrepit little town like this that doesn't even have electricity and ask about our television?
Good morning. It's Tuesday, Trump Tuesday, June the 3rd, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have headlines, patriotic shorts, motivation, Bishop Barron, Ayn Rand, and Donald Trump. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. And now the headlines for Tuesday, June the 3rd. Breaking, H.R. 1526 passes the U.S. House to limit district court judges' authority to issue orders blocking presidential policies. Disney lays off hundreds, downsizes entertainment divisions. Hannity calls former Biden special assistant full of crap for saying he hasn't seen any cognitive decline on Biden. PSG players seem shocked by Macron's wife. Pam Bondi is filing charges against the state of New York Governor Kathy Hochul, and Attorney General Letitia James. And those are the headlines for Tuesday, June the 3rd. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, the political corner.
It's the weekend, so it's time for another MAGA Minute. Let's roll through it. Consumer confidence surged in May with its biggest monthly jump in 4 years. U.S. new home sales jumped to its highest rate since 2022 as home prices continue to fall. And for the first time in the history of Rasmussen polling, a majority of respondents said the country is on the right track. In a huge win for the MAHA movement, Skittles agreed to remove titanium dioxide from their products as a result of the administration's hard work. The president signed several executive orders this week to restore the gold standard of science and reinvigorate our nuclear energy industry. President Trump also gave the commencement address at West Point, and on Memorial Day, he visited Arlington National Cemetery to pay tribute to the fallen heroes whose sacrifice has kept our nation free. The administration also sent a letter calling on all federal agencies to cancel their wasteful government contracts with Harvard University as Harvard continues to engage in nonsensical race-based discrimination. The president hosted a press conference with Elon Musk to celebrate the rooting out of fraud, waste, and abuse in our government led by Doge. And the president traveled to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to announce a planned partnership between U.S. Steel and Nippon Steel that will create at least 70,000 jobs and equates to a $14 billion investment in Pennsylvania. That's it for this week's MAGA Minute. We'll see you next week as we get closer to passing the one big, beautiful bill.
And that was the political corner. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now the patriotic short.
You ever hear the phrase, don't bring a knife to a gunfight? Well, I've got a little twist on it. I'm all about bring a knife to a gunfight, and here's why. Let's say you've got your primary weapon system, you're coming in through the house, and all of a sudden you come into a room. The combatant, as you turn a corner, he's right there, and he actually pinned your rifle down to your side. Now, you can't get this rifle up. What are my choices from here? I can't get my rifle into the fight. My secondary weapon system, bring my pistol out. The problem with bringing my pistol out while I'm at this close, while I'm holding the grip, if the enemy was to grab the front of this pistol, it's very easy for him to twist that out of my hand. Instead of going straight to that secondary weapon system, leave that holster and pull your knife out. Is he going to grab the other end of that? Good luck with that. Now, from here, because of the way I have it mounted, you notice blades facing out. I have carotid arteries there. I have the kidneys. I don't necessarily have to get a shot here, but what I'm doing is I'm making enough space so that I can get off the guy, and then I can either bring out my pistol or get my long gun back up in a fight.
And that was the patriotic short. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now time to get motivated.
When you start anything, to learn something new, to create a business, to become more in shape, the first step, the first day, the first minute, you're excited. You're like, yeah, I'm going to do this. The next day comes and you're like, man, this is a little tougher. And then you take another step and another step, and you end up admitting to yourself, this is pretty damn hard. The enthusiasm from the beginning of the process starts to fade out. You forgot why you started. All you could think about is that next grueling step, that next terrible workout, that next day at work that you just can't stand anymore. And you forget the purpose of why you started. And things become monotonous. They become hard. They become miserable. You become angry. You become frustrated. And guys, that is normal. Anytime you start something new, anytime you set out on a new path, anytime you move out of your comfort zone, you're going to go through a bell curve of frustration. You're going to be excited. You're going to be pumped. You're going to have the momentum to carry you through the first 2 or 3 or 4 days. Maybe it's a week. Maybe it's 3 weeks. But what happens when that energy fades? What happens when you start to get frustrated? What happens when you start to feel like a grind and things get grueling and they get gritty and they get tough and it gets harder to move through the process every single day? What happens then? Most people quit.
Do not accept that. Do not allow the process to break you. You embed that long-term goal into your brain, and every single day of your life, from here on out, you do something about it. However small or insignificant each step may seem, you take it. You make it happen.
The way in which you make massive progress is learning the art of becoming single-minded, learning how to concentrate, learning how to focus in. And you'll be surprised at the things that you're able to do when you learn how to block things out, when you learn how to keep thine eyes single.
Clarity is power. If you know exactly what it is you really want, what you desire, what you're really after, the more clear you are on specifically what you want, the faster your brain can get you there. Your brain's like a servo mechanism in a missile. It locks on the heat signature. What does it do? It moves and follows it. That's the way your brain is if it knows the outcome, if it knows the result. I need to know the result and the after before I ever ask myself what to do. Get focused on the target. The target is not the activity. The activity can change. It's what's the result I'm after. If you just keep looking at those outcomes every day, how am I doing on that outcome? Your brain will come up with ways to get to that outcome. I promise you. Focus on outcomes, not on activities.
You'll be surprised at the ideas that will come to you, of the opportunities that you'll be able to see. You'll begin to see things that have been staring there, looking you in the face, saying, I can't believe this has been here all this time.
If you're creative enough, can you find the answer, yes or no? If you're determined enough, can you find the breakthrough, yes or no? If you're passionate, loving enough, can you get someone to help you, yes or no? If there's no way that you're committed, can you find the money, even if you don't have it, yes or no? Creativity, decisiveness, passion, these are the ultimate human resources. And when you engage these resources, you can get any other resource on earth. And if you don't have what you want, stop telling yourself the story because you don't have the money or the time. That's bullshit. It's because you haven't committed yourself where you would burn your boats. If you want to take the fucking island, burn your fucking boats, and you will take the island because people, when they're going to either die or succeed, tend to succeed.
And you've got to be so relentless, regardless of what comes down the pike, that you're always looking for a way to get over, always looking for a way that you can break through, always looking for a way that you can win, always looking for a way that you can strike a telling blow.
Wherever focus goes, energy flows.
If you focus on the obstacles, all you will see is obstacles. I can't get apart. I can't do this. Versus, I'm going to keep doing this. It's such a huge thing to convert things into the affirmative.
See, a lot of us, because of our limited vision of ourselves, a lot of us who begin to focus on problems and enable them to overwhelm us, we begin to think that we have no options. We begin to believe that there's no way out. There's always a way. Where there's a will, there's a way.
But many of you all over the place, and that's why you'll never be what you want to be. That's why you'll never have what you want to have. And I'm asking that the 24 hours in your life be very intentional, very deliberate, that you be very strategic. You're very deliberate about what time you wake up. You're very deliberate about what time you go to bed. You're very deliberate about what you eat. You're very deliberate about the people you bring in your life. You are very deliberate about the books that you read. You're very deliberate about what you watch on television. You are very, very focused, intentional, and deliberate. You go in the future and you see your future, baby. You look at it. You see where you want to be in 20 years, in 30 years, in 40 years. And then you come back to the present, to this particular day, to this particular spot. Get in the spot and you master master today and you don't worry about tomorrow, and you ain't tripping on your past. Why? Because your past don't count no more, and your future is so far ahead that you don't even need to be worried about that. You master the present. You master Monday, and then you take on Tuesday. And once you lick Tuesday, then you say Wednesday, come on. And then you take Thursday, and then you master Friday. And then you tell the weekend, bring it on. And when you get to the point where you start winning the day, then you start winning a week. And then you start winning a month. And then you start winning a year. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Go fast, go hard, and win the day. And if you can do that, you'll have, you'll be, and you'll do whatever you want to do.
And that was motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Meditation. And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the Daily Stoic.
Life isn't a dance. The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing, because an artful life requires being prepared to meet and withstand sudden and unexpected attacks. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations, 7.61. Dancing is a popular metaphor for life. One must be limber and agile and go along with the music. One must feel and follow and flow with their partner. But anyone who has tried to do something difficult, where there is competition or an adversary, knows that the dancing metaphor is insufficient. Nobody ever gets up on stage and tries to tackle a dancer. The dancer never gets choked out by a rival. For a wrestler, on the other hand, adversity and the unexpected are part and parcel of what they do. Their sport is a battle, just like life. They are fighting an opponent as well as their own limitations, emotions, and training. Life, like wrestling, requires more than graceful movement. We have to undergo hard training and cultivate an indomitable will to prevail. Philosophy is the steel against which we will sharpen that will and strengthen that resolve.
And that was a daily Stoic. And now, His Excellency Bishop Robert Barron.
At the heart of evangelization, everybody, is this. It's sharing an experience of the power of Christ. If it's just arguments, that can strike people as empty words. Rather, the greatest evangelist is the one who says, I've been healed by my contact with this Jesus, and now I want you to have the same experience. Evangelization is one starving person telling another where to find bread.
And that was His Excellency Bishop Robert Barron. And now, the Ayn Rand thought of the day. Quote, the only actual factor required for the existence of free competition is the unhampered, unobstructed operation of the mechanism of a free market. The only action which a government can take to protect free competition is laissez-faire, which in free translation means hands off, unquote. And that was Ayn Rand from the chapter America's Persecuted Minority, Big Business, from the book Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, gaslighting.
So many students and faculty that I talked with that have contacted me have said, here's the information I want to give you, here's what's going on, but don't use my name, I cannot come in and talk. That makes the point that I'm trying to drive home in the first place, that there is self-censorship going on. And of course, those participating in the liberal bias don't view it as a liberal bias. To them, it's the way it should be. And it excludes people that don't think like them or don't follow the institutional orthodoxy. And that has to change. This is a good bill for Ohio, and it's going to be good for higher education.
And that was the gaslighting. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Proud Maria and then Stu.
Success and our team, and more humble to our viewers to thank you this morning. Cheers to another 10 years and beyond of having the smartest conversation in the morning every morning. And Mark Tepper, we want to thank you as well as one of our most important regulars here every week. Tiffany Smiley, thank you. And thank you to all of our regulars. There are too many to name. General Jack Keane, Gordon Chang, Mike Lee, so many, and so many CEOs as well. Mark, quite an amazing accomplishment to say we've been on the air 10 years.
That's awesome. Congrats to you. Congrats to the team. Thanks to the viewers. And Maria, thanks to you for allowing me to be a part of this awesome show over the course of the last 5 years. Best morning show ever.
Yes, Maria, I feel blessed. I feel lucky to have sat by you, to have watched you, to learn from you. You are a gift, and we are lucky to have you. And I can't wait to see you reporting on U.S. beating China at surveillance in the next 10 years.
Well, thank you so much for that. And when Cheryl comes back, we'll give her a big congratulations as well for this incredible 10 years that we are celebrating. Thank you so much to our viewers. We love you so much. Please keep sending me your notes. Tell us what you want us to cover. Tell us what you want us to follow up on, and we will. Mark Tepper and Tiffany Smiley, great to have you this morning. Have a great Tuesday, everybody. We'll see you again tomorrow. Varney and Company picks it up now. Stu, take it away.
Wait a minute. Congratulations, Maria.
Thank you.
10 years.
Yes.
I'd just like to add, it's the best early morning show ever. I was just adding to Mark Tepper's correspondence. I know Mark's listening to this.
Thank you, Stu.
Thank you, Maria. Good morning, everyone. Let's go. The president tells all those countries negotiating trade deals, get your best offer in by tomorrow. He's running out of patience. The timeline is this. Get the offers in tomorrow, negotiate, and wrap it all up by July the 9th. Meanwhile, the argument with China, that's heating up. Trump says China did not live up to the terms of the deal last month. Here's China's response. They firmly reject these unjustified accusations, end quote. Meanwhile, Press Secretary Leavitt says President Trump will speak directly with President Xi very soon. Her words. Not much impact on stocks. Modest selling across the board today. The Dow down about 80. Fractional losses for the S&P and for the Nasdaq. Look at Bitcoin. You're looking at about $104,000 a coin. 105.3 right now. The yield on the 10-year Treasury coming in at 4.44%. No change. The 2-year 3.95%, up a little. Details emerging about the suspect in the Boulder attack. A search of Mohammed Sabri Solomon's residence suggests he had been planning the attack for a year. He came to America on a tourist visa. When that expired, he applied for asylum. He was granted a work permit. That expired in March of last year. He was here illegally. No one checked on him. Separately, far-left Democrats like squad members are now coming out condemning the violence. AOC posts that she is horrified by the attack. Ilhan Omar writes, violence against anyone is never acceptable. Perhaps they will stop using inflammatory language about Israel and genocide. On the show today, Newark Airport reopens a runway ahead of time. Fewer delays, fewer cancellations. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy will be here. The Green New Deal, dying. Well, it's almost dead. America is going after its massive energy resources, pipelines being built, liquefied natural gas flowing overseas. Drill, baby, drill is on track. The Greens are horrified, but there's little they can do. And we'll bring you into the Trump always chickens out argument. It's playing out on social media. Democrat Eric Swalwell has put out a strange taco video. We'll show it to you. I have no idea what point he's trying to make. Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025, Varney and Company.
And Varney and Company is about to begin. But what he was saying about the Green New Deal, and he was saying that the environmentalists are horrified or whatever. The thing that bothers me the most about this whole Green New Deal and environmentalism is that what it is really is minority rule. This is a democracy, and in a democracy or democratic republic, if you want to be absolutely correct about it, and in a democratic republic, majority rules, not minority. But we have a situation with the so-called environment in which the minority goes ahead and rules. And that's the worst thing and the scariest thing about environmentalists and environmentalism. And shame on Mr. Stuart Varney for not knowing that. Nonprofit news now. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Maria Bartiromo.
And that is a former White House physician, Texas Congressman Ronnie Jackson, with me here back in September of 2022, warning our viewers early on about former President Joe Biden's mental fitness as Democrats and the mainstream media insisted the president was fine. Now, a new book from Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson exposes how desperate the Biden administration was to hold on to their grip on power. And
so, okay, I finally figured out, it shows you how stupid I am. This has been going on for years, and it finally dawns on me this morning. Ding! This book could have been written years ago and written by Maria Bartiromo or anybody else at Fox News, OANN, Newsmax. Any of these so-called journalists could have written this book, and they didn't, because there's an unwritten rule, apparently, I don't know, I'm not in the news business, that you don't do exposés on your colleagues. They'll run out and do investigative journalism about anybody and everybody except their colleagues. As a matter of fact, I think I did mention this years ago. I complained that there was the Washington Press Corps, that was a story begging to be told, to be written by some journalist somewhere, was what a crappy job that they were doing and why they were doing a crappy job. Why did all of a sudden the Washington Press Corps decide that they were going to be in the bag for the Democrat Party? Throughout history, they may have been Democrats, but they at least kept that. They gave the appearance of credibility, integrity, and nonpartisanship. Okay, so now all of a sudden they're just wide open about it. Why? What happened? Fox News or somebody at Fox News or any other journalist could have written that story. That would have been the investigative journalism story of the century, but nobody wrote it. Nobody wrote it. Now everybody's saying, "Oh, look at this! Jake Tapper wrote a book." And when it is them, Maria Bartiromo, Stuart Varney, and those people that should have, or Mark Levin, he's written several books. Sean Hannity's written several books. Michael Savage. I go on and on with all the right-wing talk show hosts that could have done some kind of investigative journalism, or at least prompted investigative journalists to write the story years ago. But no. They don't look at these people as being problems. They're colleagues. I can't write an expose about my colleagues. That's no good. Yes, it is. Get off your dead ass and do it. So I get tired of listening to these people then going on and on about Jake Tapper's book. You're late to the party. You should have written the book instead of Jake Tapper, because now, basically, Jake Tapper, in writing his book, he gets to decide what's going to be published, what isn't, what's going to be exposed, and what is going to remain hidden. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now from a book that's called Good Inside. What's the opposite of understanding? For this argument's sake, it's convincing. Convincing is the attempt to prove a singular reality, to prove that only one thing is true. Convincing is an attempt to be right, and as a result make the other person wrong. It rests on the assumption that there's only one correct viewpoint. And then my question is this supposed to be convincing? Further, convincing has one goal in mind, being right. And here's the unfortunate consequence of being right. The other person feels unseen and unheard, at which point most people become infuriated and combative, because it feels as if the other person does not accept your realness or worth. Feeling unseen and unheard makes connection impossible. Understanding two things are true and convincing one thing is true are diametrically opposed ways of approaching other people, so a powerful first step in any interaction is to notice which mode you're in. When you're in one thing is true mode, you're judgmental of and reactive to someone else's experience because it feels like an assault on your own truth. As a result, you will seek to prove your own point of view, which in turn makes the other person defensive because they need to uphold the realness of their experience. In one thing is true mode, exchanges escalate quickly. Each person thinks they're arguing about the content of the conversation when in fact they're trying to defend that they are a real, worthy person with a real, truthful experience. And again, is this convincing? Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the weekly stats from Spreaker for the week of May 25th through May 31st. Downloads are up. Up in the United States, even in Canada, even in Australia, and even in India. And those are the stats for the week of May 25th through the May 31st from Spreaker. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, what does the phrase, if you're explaining, you're losing, mean? This was said by Ronald Reagan, speaking of political campaigns. From the perspective of your audience, if you have to explain yourself, you come off looking desperate to convince. As a consequence, you lose the high ground. From a more philosophical perspective, if you have a clear conscience and strong conviction towards the positions you take, your values, truth, and direction, you don't need the opinions or consent of others. As a consequence, you don't need to explain yourself. However, if you yourself are not convinced of the validity and truth of your position, or you can't fully justify your choices, then you continue to expel words in an attempt to create the illusion of certainty. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of Maria Bartiromo and some commentary.
Later this week, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says that the administration is monitoring China's compliance with the Geneva Trade Agreement, while China is accusing the U.S. of, quote, extreme measures against Beijing.
So what China is doing is, or the Chinese government, the communist Chinese, that's what she should have said. She should have made sure that that's plain, is that this is the communist Chinese. Communist Chinese are telling us to take their word for it. But the communist Chinese would lie, cheat, steal, sell their own grandmother down the river for 10 cents on the dollar. So I don't trust them, and I'm not going to take their word for it. I make the presumption for the United States of America. I make, as a true conservative, the presumption for the status quo, and that's the status quo. So I don't believe communist China when they say we're taking extreme measures, whatever that's supposed to mean. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, psychopolitics.
10. Gamification. In order to heighten productivity, emotional capitalism also enlists playing and games, which should, in fact, be the other of work, its opposite. Emotional capitalism is gamifying the life and working world. Playing games lends an emotional, indeed a dramatic charge to working, which in turn generates more motivation. Because games rapidly deliver a sense of success and reward, the result is higher performance and a greater yield. A person playing a game, being emotionally invested, is much more engaged than a worker who acts rationally or is simply functioning. Games exhibit a specific temporality marked by immediate experiences of success and reward. But what matures over time cannot be gamified. Whatever is long, anything that lasts a long time, proves incompatible with the game's temporality. Hunting, for instance, matches the mode of the game, whereas farming, which depends on the slow process of ripening and quiet growth, cannot be gamified at all. Life cannot be turned into hunting alone. The gamification of work exploits homo ludens. The player subjugates him or herself to the order of domination in the very act of playing. Today, the gamification logic of likes, friends, and followers means that social communication is also being plugged into and subordinated to a game mode. The corollary of the gamification of communication is its commercialization. That said, this process is destroying human communication. A corpse is running society, the corpse of labor. Ein Leichnam beherrscht die Gesellschaft, der Leichnam der Arbeit. So begins the Manifesto Against Labor, written by the Crisis Group, which is based around Robert Kurtz. Following the microelectronic revolution, the argument goes, the production of wealth has grown increasingly detached from human labor. Yet at the same time, society has never been so thoroughly committed to work as it is in our post-Fordist age, an epoch that in actual fact is only making labor more and more superfluous. The manifesto points out that the political left, in particular, has exalted labor. Not only has it declared work the essence of human being, more still, it has mystified labor and pronounced it the opposite principle to capital. The left does not view work itself as a scandal, only its exploitation. For this reason, the manifesto concludes, the program of all workers' parties has always been simply the liberation of labor, instead of liberation from labor. Labor and capital, then, represent two sides of the same coin. Yet, despite highly vigorous forces of production, we have not witnessed the advent of the realm of freedom, Reich der Freiheit, where labor determined by necessity and external expediency ends. Ultimately, Marx himself adhered to the primacy of labor. The increase of free time, he contends, reacts back upon the power of labor as itself the greatest productive power. But with that, the realm of necessity comes to colonize the realm of freedom. Idle time, as time for higher activity, transforms its possessor into a different subject with greater productive force than one who merely toils. As time for the full development of the individual, free time contributes to the production of fixed capital. In fact, this means that knowledge gets capitalized too. In modern parlance, more leisure time means increased human capital. Idleness that might otherwise be devoted to activities free of purpose and constraint are integrated into the operations of capital. Even though Marx speaks of capital fixe being man himself, human beings endowed with general intellect are now transforming themselves into capital. In contrast, true freedom would be possible only if life were entirely freed from capital, which represents a new form of transcendence. The transcendence of capital stands in the way of life as immanence. Contrary to Marx's assumptions, the dialectic between forces of production and relations of production is not leading to freedom. More than anything else, it is entangling us in exploitation along new lines. We would have to think with Marx, beyond Marx, in order to make freedom, indeed, time that is free, our own. It could only come from the other of work, a wholly other force that no longer serves production or admits transformation into any kind of workforce at all. In other words, freedom could only come from a mode of living, Lebensform, that is no longer a mode of production. Indeed, from something altogether unproductive. The course our future takes will depend on whether we prove able, beyond the world of production, to make use of the useless. The human being is a creature of luxury, In the original and authentic sense, luxury is not a practice of consumption. Rather, it means a mode of living that is free of necessity. Freedom is based on deviation, luxuriance, getting away from necessity, Notwendigkeit. Luxury transcends the intention of averting need, die Not zu wenden. But today, consumption is co-opting even luxury. Excessive consumption amounts to unfreedom, compulsion corresponding to the unfreedom of labor. Luxury as freedom, like play that is truly free, can be thought only beyond the world of work and consumption. Viewed in this light, it stands close to asceticism. True happiness comes from what runs riot, lets go, is exuberant and loses meaning, the excessive and superfluous. That is, it comes from what luxuriates, what has taken leave of all necessity, work, performance, and purpose. But today, even excess is being pocketed by capital, which strips it of its emancipatory potential entirely. What is more, playing and games belong to luxury too, but as play that is not yoked to the process of labor and production. As a means of production, gamification is destroying play's potential to set free. Play should make it possible to use things in wholly different ways. It should liberate them from the theology and teleology of capital. Not long ago, a highly unusual incident in Greece was reported. It was all the more unusual for occurring in a country suffering so greatly under the yoke of capital. The event possesses a singularly emblematic quality, so much so that it seems like a sign from the future. Children, it is said, found a large bundle of banknotes in the ruins of a house. They made use of them in a wholly other way, playing with them and tearing them to shreds. Perhaps these children anticipated a future we will share. The world lies in rubble. In the ruins, we are playing too, tearing apart paper money. Profanation means taking things that belonged to the gods and were therefore removed from mortal use and returning them to human beings to do with as they will. The Greek children were profaning money by handing it over to an entirely other use, games and play. In a single stroke, profanation transformed what is so fetishized today, money, into a common toy. Agamben understands religion in terms of the Latin religere. Accordingly, it means being attentive and alert, watching over things that are holy, and taking care that they remain separate from other things. Such setting apart is essential to religion. Profanation, then, means adopting an attitude of conscious negligence with regard to this same watchfulness. The children in Greece were displaying carelessness about money when they simply played with it and tore it apart. As such, profanation represents a practice of freedom that liberates us from transcendence, from any and every form of subjectivation. In this manner, profanation opens a playful margin of immanence, Spielraum der Immanenz. There are two forms of thinking at work and thinking at play. The conceptions advanced by Hegel and Marx are governed by the principle of work. Likewise, Heidegger's being and time is still bound to working. In its care or anxiety, Dasein does not play. Only later did Heidegger discover play, which is based on releasement, Gelassenheit. In this light, he came to interpret the world itself as play. Now he sought out the open, thus offner of a free space, hardly surmised and heeded, in which beings come into play as such. Heidegger's time, play, space, Zeit, Spiel, Raum, gestures towards a time-space free of labor in any form. In this realm of the event, psychology has been completely surpassed as a mode of subjectivation.
And that was Chapter 10, Gamification from Psychopolitics, Neoliberalism and New Technologies of Power by Byung-Chul Han. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there and reminding you that you are not neutral and that the government has no rights.